that's the thing about it. If you're not full time, you are doing it in the cracks of your life.
Comic book and talking about the process. All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the making of Turbo Pit Fighter, the comic
That's right.
book, where
That's right.
we are actually talking about how to make a comic book because we're actually making one right now. I'm Kurt Brugel.
Yep, I'm doing the
Jake,
pencils. I'm Jake
and you
Jacobs. I'm
and
doing the
you.
pencil. Hello,
Yeah, you
hello,
can hear me,
sir.
right?
Yeah.
All right. So
So,
you were saying when we were just talking a little bit before about what's your take on the difference between comic book and graphic novel?
well, a comic book is usually a floppy book, usually around 32 pages, uh, and only 20 pages of story, and then a bunch of ads. And a graphic novel is hard. It's what like a paperback book in the bookstore on the shelf. You usually see the only the side spine rather than the cover in the bookstore. So you have a lot more pages, and there's a big difference to it. I think all comics really are um, being compiled into larger editions now. If you have a series, like Conan or Iron Fist or anything, I think the point is just to keep them in print forever now. And once they're released as comics and they do their thing on the newsstand, um, the formula now is to release them as graphic novels later, or trade paperbacks, or
Yeah,
deluxe
trade paperbacks.
treasury editions, or what have you.
Right. The
Yeah,
variant repackaging.
right. And with variants and with like all the old comics that are being released now are all getting a redo on the colors. We spoke about that. I wonder also if they're taking out any inappropriate references, that were that are taboo now that used to be okay, like saying Japs instead of Japanese, or stuff
Right.
like that. But
Right.
it's just re-releasing stuff, and our plan right here is to make our comics one at a time. Kurt is right now is inking edition number one, issue number one, and I am penciling issue number two, and we plan to go from there until there are um, the plan is six
Yeah.
issues, and then that will be they'll come out one at a time and be compiled into a graphic novel at the end. And God knows when, but we're working here. We're working hard on it. We are working hard right in
Definitely.
front of your eyes.
Exactly. So if you ever have questions or want to know more about something, we're more than happy to answer comments, which we've already done in one of our past episodes. Somebody asked a question, and we have no problem in repeating ourselves. So don't think maybe the question's already asked, because you might be definitely listener, somebody who is actively wanting to pursue your own comic book and make it graphic novel, trade paperback, um, or already are doing it. You're already doing it, and you'd like to share some of what your lessons um, are in life. All right, cool.
Yeah, this is this is this is definitely a DI. It's definitely a DIY community.
Oh
There's
yeah,
a lot of people that are into it, are also doing it, but you also have your collectors and your fans, and those are the people that attend conventions, and they really make it a business. So thank God for them. And
yep.
we're hopefully creating some good new product here.
That is what we're after. So
Yes,
with
sir.
that being said, I have things to share. I have been busy based on an episode previous. I can't remember if it was the one before or the one before that. So either episode of 13 or 14, we were talking about, well, I was definitely talking about printing on newsprint and making our own comic books. So I did a 4 page, um, like a inking portfolio is what I'm calling it. And they were 4 pages from the Diary of Dr. Hayward by Jack Kirby, one of his first comics. So I did go out and get a big pad of newsprint and then cut it down 11 by 17, and then actually did, the page, you know, you know, this is page 4, this is page 1, page 2, page 3. So I have a comic book, and I have to say, I really like it on newsprint. White, stark white, is so bright that it can
Well,
kill your eyes, and so you lose a lot of readability when it's just that stark black and white. And it's kind of hard to concentrate. So I really, really like the way this came out. And this is obviously 8.5 by 11. Um, and no
right.
trim. So,
You also have the immediate aged look built in, right? Because it's a little
yeah,
bit brownish or a little bit yellowish.
yep,
So
yep.
an instant
So
classic, right?
then, yep, yep. So then we were talking about printing it out, like a 2 color. You had mentioned purple and like amber. So
Right.
I ended up creating a second plate to this, which was sort of like a background, let's say color plate, and then played around it in Photoshop to kind of get like a halftone to it. So then I printed out twice. I printed out the amber first and then ran it back through and put the purple on top. So
But
pretty
the
cool.
so you're just kind of like ghosting it. You're just like giving it a double hit of the of it's the same artwork and with
No,
those
no.
two
I
plates.
actually I printed out another 13 by 19 at a low opacity, like 10%, and then I just used color markers uh, to kind of find some values, then scanned it in, turned it to black and white, threw a halftone filter on it, and then put the amber over the top of it, and then dropped in the original art, which was just my inking,
Mm-hmm.
and then converted that layer to this sort of purple, um, and then kept the 2 layers, and then just printed out the amber, and you can really see, how the kind of it's a
Oh yeah,
orangey
yeah.
color. But here's here's
Uh-huh.
another here's another thing we were talking about, and I thought this is interesting. So I then printed out the 2 layers sandwiched together, and you can see the difference. I mean, when you get a compression, it really just bleeds the colors together. So even that purple lost about 20% of its like dark contrast, but
Yeah.
you can even see the brightness in that, that amber there. So
The printing process is really like you have to test it and you have to take samples all the way through the process. Um, I was just looking. I don't know, my YouTube automatic algorithms. When I'm too lazy to change it, gave me a cartoonist kayfabe, and they were looking at a Barry Windsor Smith portfolio that a fan
yeah,
had donated to the show, and they were
yep,
talking about all of these different printing processes that they went through because it was new and different when Barry Windsor Smith started the Conan series. I think it was just around 1970, and
yeah,
so he was losing a lot of quality on his artwork, and he was like a very fine, detailed artist. So he started to put out these portfolio sets, that were printed on different types of paper, and they were colorized in different ways, and you really get a difference, in quality, in holding the line art, in being able to see nuance in colorization, and it's something that you have to bring it all the way through the printing process. You cannot assume when you're making this that it's going to look like what you intend, unless you actually do it and see it through to the end.
Yeah, remember back in the day, even when people were publishing their comic books or even websites, there was always the monitor calibrations was always
Oh
an
yeah.
issue. So there was
Oh yeah.
always, I remember making websites and having to put a disclaimer that if you were on
Mm-hmm.
Netscape or whatever
Yeah.
Windows or whatever, you had to recalibrate your monitor to be able to get the best, you know,
I
colors
could
out of
tell
what
you.
was
Yeah, I
going
worked
on.
in I worked in electronic prepress. I worked at a commercial print shop, and we were creating stuff that was going to be printed on presses, and there was a lot of these like gimmicks, and even like suction cups going onto a monitor that were trying to close the loop between what you see on screen and what gets printed. And they were using like Pantone chips, and they were using like pretty much every trick in the book that you could imagine to to try to and make it more predictable. But I think nowadays people just realize, no, every monitor is different, every phone's different. Sometimes they're old, sometimes they're new, and you can control it a lot more on the printing presses now because they're all digital. But what you're looking at on a monitor, and especially if you're just sharing something that's going to be seen digitally, yellow can be more red, it could be more green, it could be lighter, darker. Oven temperatures may vary, and so that was a real hassle back in the day because, if you're like a Land's End and you're selling sweaters, you want the actual sweater color to be in the
Right,
brochure.
right.
And if not, you could have people returning stuff like crazy. So it was a real headache for a long time, but here we are in 2022. So um, for us, I think, printing the comic first, just as line art, black and white line art, and then re-releasing it later, as the duotone is probably going to be the move because these things all take time, and we'll see at that point if we also make it, like the mature only variant, as opposed to just re-releasing it, or we do it twice, or who knows? We'll see. But for right now, like I say, just full steam ahead, getting our comic done.
This is true. So you're in summer school mode. So you're going to have a little bit more time to devote uh, to your pages. I am on page 12. I actually yesterday been double timing it and did page 11. So I ended up getting 80% of my inks down for page 11. So I'm going to do my best to actually get down on the 2 pages a week schedule. Like I said, I've been getting out at up at like 4:30 in the morning and just trying to get as much done as possible. And then throughout the day. So what do you think is realistic that maybe we can put together as a goal to getting close to obviously getting, I have to get issue 1 inked completely before we really start even talking about anything,
Yeah, but then yeah, then
Kickstarter stuff, but we
right,
still
yeah,
have,
there's a lot of that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm on a pay. I've kind of fallen behind. Last week we couldn't do a show because
right.
I had to go down to the city where there was a lot of protests and stuff going on that
Yeah,
I was part of with my union. And I was hoping to be on a page a week pace, but these interruptions keep happening, and summer is going to be my big catch up. So I'll see how much I can do. I really have the motivation, but you know, it's like um, it's like when you see your guitar there on the stand and you want to play it, but you don't have time. Same thing with my comics pads and all my pencils and stuff. I want to sit there, get there, and sit down and do it. But we got chores and we have different obligations going on. So we'll see what happens this summer if we
cool.
have a lot more time than the regular school year. I did start summer school. Well, it starts on Tuesday, the first day with students, but it's going to be a version of school, and I do need to do some prepping and some planning, lesson planning, and all this stuff. But I have a feeling that once it starts, the kids are going to be dwindling, and it's going to kind of fall apart little by little. I think that's the prediction because we're not in my regular school building. They're making us go to this other middle school, and so I don't know if we're gonna actually have anything real going on, but we'll try. And the hours are very light. It's like 8 to 12 Monday through Thursday. So we'll see how much of those other times I can actually devote and come home and do this stuff. But that's the thing about it. If you're not full time, you are doing it in the cracks of your life.
Yeah, that is very true. And as we've stated prior episodes, we're lifers. So
Yeah,
even working real jobs and having real lives and all that stuff, we're still have our eyes on the prize. And so as long as it takes is going to be as long as it takes to get this going and going and going. Because I hate to say like, you know, get it done. Like we're gonna, because it just never feels like, I have finished a couple of comics in the last couple of years, and it just by the time you're getting to that point, you're already planning for the next comic or the next
yeah,
issue or the next or the next or the next, which is actually for me the exciting part. I'm just severely ADD, and so I can have a tendency to just wander off to another project and get it started or, you know, but because we're a team here and we've got the podcast, it's keeping us anchored to at least getting us off the ground with issue one, and to really feel what it means to be published in the days of, the current climate.
yeah, man. So right here, I'm working on a panel where their berserkers are jumping on the back of the van to try and kill Turbo and the Trophy Girl and take over the van. Um, these are the hate breeders, and there's going to be a kind of a battle scene in the next couple of pages. This is where these little mace chain balls kind of screwed up their plans and took out a lot of their vehicles. So this was kind of like a little bit of technical drawing here, some hot rods and motorcycles. But now we're gonna get into the ass womping. Um, and yeah, it's this hot pursuit, and these cretins are coming for the ladies, and they're going to they're gonna have let me see, one, two, three. I think I have 4 pages. This is what's coming next. This page here. They're gonna smash in the window, and then Turbo's gonna start taking them out. I switch over to these smaller thumbnails here, but yeah. So that's this page here, and then one, two, three, four, five, 6 page, 7 pages of ass kicking, and then in that next page, they're going to have like some repairs needed to the van, and they're going to be coasting downhill, and they're going to be going to meet Mr. Ike. So yeah, this is, and then we're going to go to flashback, right? This is what this is right here, is going back to flashback. So like you say, like, we're planning we're planning panels ahead, we're planning pages ahead, and we're doing the pencils for the layouts, breakdowns, whatever you want to call it, to try to make this story not only cohesive but exciting and visual, and you know lots of action, lots of story, and bring some elements to the table.
Did you see the link, the Kickstarter link I sent you?
Yeah, I did. I was surprised you sent that one because it was really cartoony. The
Yeah,
style was really cartoony, but what was it
but
what was it
it
that stood out to you?
the trailer.
Oh,
So they
okay.
have that little, yeah, because in my notes, I've been wanting to talk about, because we have made references to, comic books, the physical ones, the movies that, have now populated the world, and then animation. Um, and both of us have, we're early adopters of Flash animation. And was it 98 we started doing Flash
Two
animation?
2000 for me.
It was
I,
2000? Okay.
yeah, well,
And
that's when I started putting stuff out. I was
right,
learning about it in like 99.
right. But one of the interesting moves people have been making, because Flash no longer exists as a piece of software, um, is I think it's After Effects, Adobe After Effects,
Well,
and
well,
Illustrator.
yeah, the Adobe Creative Suite has an animation product in there, and
Yeah,
I think they said Department of Education employees can get free access to it. I just haven't downloaded it.
right,
And it would be ridiculous to think that I could actually teach it in the classroom at the middle school level, because
right.
they don't give us any computers for kids, and they don't give us any time to do that. But um, just coming from the Flash background, and I am very curious to see what the tools are like. And there are high school programs that that do animation pretty seriously. But I also saw, I go to every year, they have the art festival, or the spring arts festival for the High School of Art and Design, which is the big specialized school in New York City for the best artists in all 5 boroughs, and they take these courses that are like 2 extra hours a day of art, in addition to all the regular high school requirements. So like the best and the brightest um, in New York City. And yeah, the festival hardly had any animation this year. I think they were in real recovery mode, coming back from the pandemic year and getting back in person, and disorganized, discombobulated, and kids are traumatized. But in previous years, you would see at the Spring Arts Festival, they would have these screens set up, and you would have a sample of some animation, and it might be like, clenching and unclenching a fist, or, somebody doing, very, very short things. They don't get into it. They don't get deep into it. And so this is a high school with a lot more resources, than we have. And so, I think I put this online. It's just a shame that schools don't have these programs. They should be doing this kind of stuff over summer, where you could do deep dives, and kids can really get in depth. But it's the haves and the have-nots. And if you're an artist and you want to do, animation, get into the business, you got to lay out a lot of money. These Photoshop Creative Suite programs, whatever, Adobe, their subscription now, so it's now $29 a month, which sucks because if you have a client and you have a job, you got to pay for this thing. And then, the next month you might not have a client and might not have a job. So you got to pay for it, out of your own pocket. And, a lot of people don't have that kind of bread laying around after you pay, your phone and your internet and your cable and all that. So, it's tough. It's always been tough. And Flash animation, when we got into it, was revolutionary because it brought to the desktop, pretty decent animation production software so that anybody can sit down and make, like a 3-minute cartoon. And that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was doing. And,
Yeah.
made a lot of great connections. I think they still use it, in the industry. I think Archer and, some other, like, Cartoon Network things, still use the software or something close to it. But it's not what it was. And, that when Stan Lee did his IPO, they thought it was going to be the next greatest thing. And, it's another one of these things that just rise and fell. But if you're a young person out there and you want to make animation and you don't want to work for a big studio and sell your soul, and you just want to be creative and just do it in your house, look into the tools, Adobe Creative Suite, and there's some other stuff. There's other products there. I used to know about Toon Boom was another one.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but and I'm sure that, it's been a while, so I'm sure the names of the products have all changed and everything. But um, it's very labor intensive, but there's a need, right? There are all these cartoon, um, you know, pilots that are all being pitched, and they need visual artists to be able to do this. And I don't know what kind of a job the art colleges are doing, preparing kids for these, for these careers. When I say kids, I mean, young people. But it's it's something that we used to do, and people can go online and look at the Von Ghouls. And um, I used to also do some stuff for clients, website clients, which they own the property rights to, the IP to now. But I was making a go of it, and you know, I made a lot of money at first when the internet
Yeah.
bubble was forming, and then, after it popped, I was still kind of hanging around the industry when my first daughter was born, and then I had to, you know, get something a little more stable. But I eventually became a teacher, so talk about stability. I have a job for life now. But it's a great creative medium because it's everything that's in comics, but it's also motion and sound and color and movement. And um, it's a valuable thing if you can create something. I'm watching this Netflix series called Love, Death, and Robots. Have you?
That's what I was working. I was
Yeah,
waiting for you to get there. I was going to give you about 2 more seconds that I was going to interrupt because
but
the.
yeah,
Go ahead.
it's yeah.
Are you what? Are you through all 3 seasons, or did you just start at the beginning?
I don't know. The last one, I'm on the season with the rats, and as the little screen, as the little like landing screen. But I saw these ones where all these like army um people are going into caves, and they're seeing all these crazy creatures and everything. Probably my favorite one that I saw was just like these Spanish knights that were in
Yes.
metal. Right, we're
Yeah.
all going to this like forested area around this lake, and there was this siren, this mystical siren woman,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that was a very fast moving story, and it was
Yeah. It
really
was
beautiful
great.
visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my favorite one that really stuck out. But that's where I'm at, and then I've just been, last night I was watching them till like 2 in the morning. I was falling asleep, so I was probably just wasting my time, but. Um, Yeah, I mean, that's a great medium, right? I mean, and we can complain about like the story is never as good as the art and these things, but um, it's a great medium, and and it's all moving towards 3D, right? And I'm not sure what they're using for that, whether it's like Maya or some other tool, but you don't see the 2D. You don't see anything like Aeon Flux. You don't see anything like
You'll get to, so let me interrupt. Let me jump in. All
okay,
right. Now,
okay,
there's a guy named Robert Valley. He worked for Peter Chung, so that's where
okay,
he comes from, and it was on the Aeon Flux. You're on season 3 right now. Season 2, he has a piece on there. It's called Ice, and
okay,
it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like our Flash animation uh, 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 program on steroids.
right,
And there's a lot on YouTube. There's a lot of like making of videos and interviews with Robert Valley, and it really got me thinking on the lines of how probably we're working in I'm not saying just you and I'm just saying comic books in general, as the technology in programs get more and more, let's say, easier to use and learn and
hmm,
create greater effects. You know, comics and animation will get to a point where they will be seamless, to the point that we'll probably be publishing our comic book, motion comic book, right? Um,
yeah,
straight onto Amazon and Netflix or any of the other streaming platforms, and then getting our royalties based on like songs for that. But he has Robert Valley has a very Peter Chung Aeon Flux lankiness, the Egon Schiele feeling to the figures and stuff. He's got kind of a rock and roll thing too, where a lot of his protagonists are like look like Richard Ashcroft from The Verve or Keith Richards from Stones, and it's pretty darn cool.
hmm.
Um, but it's very promising of just how close um,
How do you
we're
spell his
working
last name?
together. Valley. Valley.
Okay, yeah, all right. Let's
And he did.
get some.
There's a YouTube one, and it's called cigarettes and cider, something cider,
Hmm. He's
uh,
kind of angular.
hard cider, and yeah. But one of the makings of it is he lays out all the keyframes in, I think, Adobe Illustrator,
Hmm.
and then he has like 3 other people that he works with, and he's the director, but he's really just the guy that's doing what we're doing.
Right.
He's making these static images, but they're in layers, from the so they can then be made into motion.
Yeah,
And then he has
he's got a lot of tutorials online actually.
oh yeah, he's really he's
Well,
real proactive.
yeah, it's good. It's good to see that people are still in the medium. As everything goes over to 3D, I think there's always been there it there's always been kind of like a dearth of 2D animators at a really high level, and doing like rotoscoping and doing like all the
Yeah.
labor intensive work of bringing an full length feature to the theater. And that's why one of my favorite was always Ralph Bakshi. um
Yes.
but there's and Peter Chung was great when he had the Aeon Flux series. But
Yes.
those are very few and far between, right?
Oh.
Very high quality uh 2D animation, very, very hard to find. And
Peter Chung is also putting a lot of uh, interviews out there, and he's really advocating uh, that he actually says, oh man, if I can find it and I can clip it and I can put it in our episode here, I'll do it. But he was arguing that things have been changing, or we're now more about the experience of watching media than it is about you know changing our emotional constitution. You know what I mean? Like going through a love story and so on and so forth. And then coming out at the other end being like, oh, I'm a bigger and better person. It's just more about being put in the cockpit of something and then just push through. And you come out on the other side with an experience and and nothing really memorable, maybe, um,
Right.
specifically. It's just, oh my God, it was just, Aeon Flux is very much like that. I can cite very specifically episodes and scenes and stuff, but for the most part, it was just an ecstatic um, experience uh, that had, other than Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice, had I had before in an animation.
Yeah, I mean, after I did find a DVD. This wasn't very well known, but it was called the Animatrix, and
Oh yeah, oh
Peter
yeah.
Peter Chung had something on that. And what they did was they took a whole bunch of animators and they had them all do a story related to the Matrix world. And some are better than others, and there's all these different styles. But that was another great example. I mean, I think, I guess if you go to these festivals, you can find all the really good stuff. But we're not seeing it come to our TVs. And like, I think one of the greatest examples of how labor intensive these things are was the heavy metal movies,
Yep.
where it was this, a labor of love by Kevin Eastman, I think, right? And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guy, he bought, he got all this money from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and licensing and all that, and he bought Heavy Metal magazine, which he still owns, and he's still, involved in it as a partner. But then he said, we're going to make a full-length animated movie based on Fact, which was a Simon Bisley character, right? Right? That's like,
I believe it's both of them, and it was
okay,
his wife at the time, Julie Strain, who basically embodied the character. So
right. She was
that
like
have
the
to,
muse. Um,
yes, but she had a great costume and everything, and so
yeah, but
plenty of
there was the artwork was like, this hot chick with weapons and stuff, and her costume,
bikini.
yeah, her uniform or whatever is like falling apart. And then they made a whole full-length movie out of it, and the movie
Yep.
was awful. It was just terrible.
Yeah,
The
it was a
story
shame.
was so bad, but and it cost so much money. And I heard that they bought, that they hired European animators and American animators and American artists, and they was just like so much involved in putting it together. So much, and it flopped. And and that's just the warning of the businesses. It's so labor intensive, and 2D animation. You have to draw every cell, by hand, and computers can only do so much for you. You can fade things out and zoom in and rotate and everything, but everything else has got to be, drawn the position. And so you get into rotoscoping, and you would think that rotoscoping would be easier than ever because of these filters they have now. And there are lots of movies where they do rotoscoping and they just kind of use a filter, like Into a Scanner Darkly
Yep.
was one, and there's more examples out today, but um, it's just a medium that I think is really underused, and for for creative minds, you know, the cost involved in CGI and special effects is enormous. And in animation, you could do anything, right? As Bugs Bunny used to say. And and people aren't taking advantage of it. Like, where are the Marvel 2D animation productions, right? And that's
Well, I think they're
and
all, it's all about being short-sighted. I think we're still, um, we're in an industry, uh, um, comic books, animation, cartoons, and going back to what you were, saying about graphic novels. It's when you start talking or wanting to project yourself as making a graphic novel, it's almost like you want to disassociate yourself from the immaturity of comic books. And specifically, comic books that are Marvel DC character based with, the immaturity of the cartoons as well. Because you just automatically get pigeonholed as, oh, well, there's nothing serious about that. It's not like you're going to be reading Kafka or Beckett or have some mind blowing uh, transcending uh, you know happen to you. But at the same point, you have things as we just went through, especially Peter Chung and Aeon Flux, that did exactly that. He was absolutely able to take a cartoon medium and I don't want to say adult, though it does have a lot of adult theme to it and themes, but there was a seriousness that was applied to the whole production of it, which I still to this day have an overwhelming sense of respect and admiration for, and do my best to reflect in my own work. Um, a sense of seriousness about it, not just like a cartoon throwing something up and out there. Because oh, everybody just thinks that this is, it looks like a comic book. Oh, it looks like a cartoon and everything. And then you get there, and you're like, oh. So what the reason I sent that link to that Kickstarter was exactly for this type of conversation between us, in us aligning ourselves to, I'll use seriousness as uh, a phrase, but what's going to cut um, turbo away from the crowd, not only just the visual or maybe even the title, but something to that place where people go, wait a second, this is playing with the medium, but it seems to have something maybe a little more serious um, applied to it.
yeah,
Because that Kickstarter definitely didn't. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it did, but the fact that they had like literally a 5 second, pretty well done animated trailer, like, to kind of, it did tease the hell out of you. But then you
right,
scroll through it and you're like, wow, this is pretty, pretty cartoony. And obviously, I'm not going to take it seriously because of its content, but there was $70,000 already on that Kickstarter.
right.
And this was like issue, I don't know, 50 or 60, 70 or whatever it is. So this thing's been around for a while, but there's some notes to be made about the sort of seriousness that you have and apply to the work.
Yeah, I think like the commitment level and the being prolific, being on time, being
Yeah, yeah,
consistent. Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep. I think those are really just as important
A lot to
as
be
how
said.
well you've done. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and I did want to shout out the What If series on on the Disney Channel. It's Marvel. Marvel is doing some 2D animation nowadays, and it's pretty nice. Um,
Yeah, I checked it
but
out. Yeah, there was some impression.
Yeah, because you
impressive stuff. Yeah.
usually when you see those Saturday morning cartoon, and it's all Marvel and DC, it's all got this real kind of like, I don't know if it's Japanese or Korean or anything, but there's a real style to it where it's just like this, very, very, a house style where it's, it just looks very cartoony and very, not comic booky, not like American comic books. And so the What If, it does a pretty good job of animating, a style that looks a little bit more like, regular American comics. And some of the stories are kind of out there. Like, what if the Black Panther was kidnapped by the Guardians of the Galaxy or something? It was like all these different weird storylines. Um, yeah, what if Black Panther was kidnapped and became Star-Lord? That was
Hmm.
what if T'Challa became Star-Lord? So there is some weird stuff, but just the fact that they're doing 2D animation means that down in Orlando, a kid right now coming out of college can go get a job or an internship and then a job, doing this, uh, you know, 2D animation. And I think maybe they just need some better writers, but it's a beautiful medium, a beautiful art medium that is, I think, underused, and I'd like to see a lot more of it, hopefully in the future.
Yeah. Well, look, we're coming on the 45-minute mark. We're trying to keep these episodes bite sized. So at 45 minutes, we're coming to the end of this episode. Man, we really covered a lot. Um, we upload new episodes every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So, and we have many in the can because we want there to be a consistency in our behavior. So we record as, usually one or two a week and then hold them. But once again, we're making a comic book, turning it into a graphic novel trade paper. We're figuring it out as we're going along. We're talking about it. And if you're out there and you're listening all the way up to this point, thank you so very much. Because obviously we're speaking to you. And if you want to say something to us, please leave comments or there's some contact info. And other than that, that's what I got, Jake.
Yeah, and if you
You got
want us
anything?
to, yeah, if people want us to look at your comic project and review it and talk about it, just put a link to it. In the next episode, we'll probably talk about all of these. I have some stuff to share with Kurt about these collab sites that are, and I keep finding more of them, and they're pretty good. So we're going to be
Oh,
discussing
okay.
that in the next edition, folks.
And yep, and I bought a little web zine, a little web comic from somebody, so I'll show that off.
Oh, nice.
And
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So with that being said, thank you everybody. Jake, I'll see you in the next episode.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.